What if I told you that there's an NBA player averaging 34 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and 10 assists per game, and he's not the favorite to win the league's MVP? What if I told you that those numbers weren't made up, and that those numbers are the reality of the season that Luka Doncic is having? I mean, I don't even know what to say at this point, because this is the craziest NBA MVP race that I've ever seen. We got about like 5 different guys, maybe even 6. There's like 6 different guys throughout this season that have been in the real MVP race. I'm not talking about, you know, Anthony Davis or Jalen Brunson, but we have 6 guys that have genuinely been in the NBA MVP race, and there's so many different factors that get brought up. And so I feel like it's a matter of just personal preference. Like, what do you like more? Do you care about team success a lot? Do you care about points per game? Maybe you care about triple doubles, or maybe you care about defense. Maybe you're an advanced analytics guy. There's so much stuff to look at. And I really feel like you can't go wrong as long as you're picking one of like the 5 guys in the MVP race, but maybe you can't go wrong, because I feel like it's kind of down to 2 guys at this point in time. Actually, we can say 3. We can say 3. Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And if you guys can't tell, this video is going to be mainly about Luka, because he's coming off a 47-point game last night, almost 47-point triple-double, and I think he didn't even play most of the fourth. Like, the stuff he's doing is just ridiculous. And if we take a look at his stats, 34 points per game, you guys can see it, it's down here, it's pretty small, but that's the only way I could, you know, pull it up. 34 points per game, insane. 9.8 assists per game. I mean, that by itself is crazy. Like, especially if we're talking about a guard. All right, so what? He's got 4 or 5 rebounds per game? No, 9.1 rebounds per game. Bro, he's almost averaging a 34-point triple-double for the whole year. Like, not just one game. Like, this is crazy for one game. 34, 9, and 10. He's averaging that. That is the normal numbers for him. Like, and he's not the front runner to win MVP. That's what's so crazy about this. The front runner to win MVP right now, if we look at the odds, I'm not just making this stuff up. If we look at the betting numbers, it's Nikola Jokic, and he's averaging 26.1, 9 assists, 12.3 rebounds. And I know that's not, you know, all that you have to look at, but those are the main things. Of course, team success matters. The Nuggets, as we know, are above the Dallas Mavericks in the standings, and that matters a lot. Same with the Thunder, with SGA. The Thunder are the 1 seed right now. Seeding matters a lot, and I think that this MVP race is going to come down to the seeding when it's all said and done. Okay, so here's the odds when we talk about betting on the NBA MVP. And some people like to just make up stuff like, oh, Shai's gonna win, Tatum's gonna win. You don't have to guess. You don't have to guess, because the odds are usually right, especially if someone is a heavy favorite, which, as you guys can see right here, Nikola Jokic, minus 700. If you know nothing about betting, basically, if you're minus at all, you're expected to, you know, get whatever that bet is done. You're expected to win. So if Jokic was minus 150, he's still expected to be the MVP. You know what I'm saying? He's minus 700. So like, it's almost in the bag for him. And I checked this yesterday, pretty much while Luka was going crazy in that 47-point game. Jokic was minus 1100. So he had it in the bag crazy. Luka was like plus 800. So now they're closing in. They're closing in. And I think that it is solely because not only is Luka going crazy, but the Mavs are on an absolute tear. They're on a crazy winning streak. I think 9-1 in their last 10. They've won like 12 straight or 13 straight when Luka's played. And these are the 5 guys that I was talking about before that are pretty much the only guys in the MVP race. Of course, Embiid was in it earlier, and if he was healthy, I mean, bro, this race, like, how do you even, I don't know. That would add another factor into the race. That would get crazy. Let's just be honest. That would be crazy. The seasons that Giannis are having and the seasons that Jason Tatum are having also deserve to be talked about. But at this point in time, I mean, you can see the numbers. They're just not going to win. They're just not. I mean, the Celtics are insane. The record is insane. Tatum's having a solid year, and he's still not close. So at this point in time, it's really a race between 3 guys: SGA, Luka, and Jokic. Okay, so I wrote down some MVP questions. Some questions that, you know, apply to a lot of the past MVPs. If you answer yes, then you have a pretty good case of winning MVP. I have a few questions, so let's quickly run through them. Is this player on a top 3 team in his conference? Of course, the Mavs are 5th, so no. He's not. And a lot of MVPs are, except for Jokic in 2022, Westbrook in 2017. By the way, these guys had insane seasons when they won it those years. They weren't top 3 in their conference. I think they were both 6th. I think Jokic in 2022 was 6th. Westbrook was 6th. Moses Malone in 1982. I think he was 6th too. I think he was also the 6th seed. So those are the 3 that I could find. Maybe there's more, but everyone else is top 3 in their conference. So Luka would join a very, small group of players. Some of them are recent though, Jokic, Westbrook. So maybe the voters have changed a little bit. Maybe that's more common to, win MVP as a lower seed. 5th seed right now. He can get the 4th seed. Top 3 is kind of out of the question, but the Clippers have been falling. The Clippers have not been playing great, and the Mavs basically can't lose right now. So with about 8 games to go, it's going to be interesting to see, can the Mavs pass the Clippers? Because if they can, I know that's not top 3, but I think that helps Luka's case a lot. And if the Mavs start to lose and they start to fall with the remainder of the regular season, especially if they fall to the play-in, it's GG's. Luka is not going to win MVP, in my opinion, if they fall to the play-in. Team success does matter for sure. And of course, going back on that topic, if we're going to talk about SGA or we're going to talk about Jokic, yes, that does apply to them. They are the 1 and the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And if we look at the East, of course, they're kind of out of it at this point, but Jason Tatum and Giannis are the 1 and the 2 out East. So we talk about the 5 guys in the MVP race. The other 4 are the 1 and the 2 seed in their respective conferences, and Luka is the 5 seed. My next question for the MVP kind of criteria stuff: is he a top scorer in the league? And I didn't even know the gap was this crazy, but as you guys can see in the top right, Luka 34 points per game. The next guy is Giannis with 30.8. I thought there were some guys with like 32, 33. I know Embiid was kind of in this mix, but I guess they don't have him on this list since he's not really eligible for awards. He's not really playing, he's injured. But 34 points per game. He is easily the top scorer in the NBA by about, we'll say 3 points, but like 4 points. Like, he is safely above everybody else. And when I kind of looked into that question, most people were maybe not the top scorer in the NBA, but they were in the mix. They were in the, in the top grouping. And if they weren't, they were usually point guards like Steph Curry, D Rose, Steve Nash. And those players had some sort of weird thing like Curry, 73 win season, Nash led the league in assists, something like that. Now, this next question is somewhat hypothetical. There's not like numbers we can look at and be like, yeah, for sure. But the question is going to be, if you took him off his team, do they absolutely plummet in the standings? And if you take Luka Doncic off the Mavs, they possibly fall out of the play-in. Like, they're in that tier with the Rockets, I would say. The Rockets, I wouldn't put them below the Jazz. They're still decent. They got Kyrie Irving still on that team, but I would put them with the Rockets. But if Luka's not on the Mavs, they're not even really a competitive team, like in the playoffs. Like, they're like a matchup you'd love to have. You know what I'm saying? Like, they plummet. But if we talk about a team like the Celtics with Jason Tatum, if you take Jason Tatum off the Celtics, I think they're just fine. They still might be the number 1 team in the East. Probably. If not, they'd be top 3, I would say. You take Jokic off the Nuggets, they are not the same team. They're still competitive. They got a lot of good, talent on them, but they kind of run through Jokic. SGA, if he's not on the Thunder, how far do the Thunder fall? If SGA's not on the Thunder, that would be crazy. They'd be, in the play-in mix for sure. So I feel like when you're talking about MVP, most valuable player, you got to kind of bring that up. You kind of got to imagine it. You got to see the numbers, when they are out compared to when they're in, and you got to take that into consideration. And I do think if Luka was not on the Mavs, they'd plummet. Like, it's kind of like, when like LeBron left the Cavs and they just plummeted to be one of the worst teams in the league. And I think this is kind of random, but it's my team and I think about it sometimes. If Steph Curry wasn't on the Warriors, and I'm not saying Curry has a case to win MVP because he doesn't, but if Steph Curry, like, he's really valued. Like, if he wasn't on the Warriors, they're one of the worst teams in the league. We've seen that too from when he, missed the season. And then my last question is, do they have an iconic performance? Because a lot of MVPs have that one game where maybe they go head to head with somebody. I think Embiid had that with Jokic where he kind of dropped off Jokic. They kind of have to have those iconic performances. And especially because we're talking about voters, right? From the NBA media on the panel. And let's just be honest, some of them maybe don't take it as serious. And some of them are going to just remember certain things. They're going to remember, oh yeah, Luka had that 73-point game. He's unreal. Obviously, everyone in the mix to win MVP is unreal. But Luka, 73-point game, I think really helps his narrative to winning MVP, especially when you factor in, you know, voters remembering things from the season. And real quick, I want to play this clip, and I guess this kind of goes against what I just said, but we have one of the voters. I'm pretty sure Stephen A. Smith is an MVP voter. Y'all can let me know if I'm wrong. Pretty sure he is. And he was speaking on the MVP race, and he said SGA is his #1 pick right now. Jokic is 2. But listen to who he said is fighting for that 3rd spot.
It's a battle for #3 between Anthony Edwards and Jalen Brunson.
I mean, bro, I love Stephen A. Smith too. He's one of my favorite, I don't have to wear these anymore, but he's one of my favorite, you know, people in the sports media. I love watching First Take. I love hearing him speak. I think he's very smart. I think he's entertaining. But this is one of the craziest things that I've ever, and I've noticed this with Stephen A. Smith. I've noticed this. He is very high on Anthony Edwards, and a lot of people are, but it almost feels like the media is driving up Ant to be way better than he is. And I mean, I guess it's just part of it. Anthony Edwards is not in the MVP race. Jalen Brunson is not in the MVP race. And I get that he's a Knicks fan. The Knicks have been great. Brunson has been like carrying them. So that kind of makes sense. But like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? What are we? Luka's not ahead of Anthony Edwards or Jalen Brunson. I just think he's misinformed or something. Like, what do you, I just think he's misinformed, or I don't know. But these are the voters that we have. And so going back on my point, I think these iconic performances like the 73-point game, I guess not to Stephen A. Smith, but to voters, some people need those memorable performances. They're not going to be looking into all the stats. They're not going to look at the advanced stats, all that stuff. This was before his game last night where he dropped 47 pregame. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I'll play this really quick. He just in warm-up shot it off the, what do you call it? The Jumbotron? I don't know what you call it, but bro, first try doing some shit like this, and he just walked away. Like that's just normal for him. Regardless of the criteria to win MVP, you know, team success factoring in, some people factor in defense, all this stuff. I think, and this is just my opinion, that Luka, regardless of the whole MVP thing, is the best player in the NBA right now. I don't know if that's a hot take. Y'all can let me know in the comments, but of course, like, I just think he's the best player. I think what he can do, no one else can do. And there's a lot of players like that. I guess you could say the same about Jokic. But just Luka's like basketball mind, like his IQ, his intelligence, his vision, his scoring, he's unguardable. Like offensively, you can't stop him. Like there's no real like game planning against him, like how to stop him. Like you just gotta kind of pray. Like I'm not even trying to glaze. Like he's averaging 34 points and like what, 10 and 10 pretty much. Like he's just offensively unstoppable. I know defensively he's not the best, but I just think when you have a player like that, I just think he's the best player in the league. And that doesn't mean you have to win MVP. The best player does not always win MVP. But I think right now, Luka's the best player. And this is another thing that I think is going to trigger some people, and a lot of people aren't going to agree with it, but it's kind of the facts. With the recent MVPs we've had, especially in the 2010s, defense doesn't matter that much. Like a lot of people will look at the numbers and you're like, okay, SGA and Luka. SGA's worse pretty much at almost everything offensively than Luka, you know, passing, scoring, all that, shooting. He's pretty much worse, but he's got defense. You know, I think he leads the league in steals. He's gonna play good defense. So for some people, and he has the team success, so that pushes him over, you know, Luka. But if we look at some of these recent MVPs like Harden, Westbrook, Curry, D Rose, they didn't play the best defense. Like I don't think it's like a need to have to play lockdown or really good defense to win MVP, because most of the time it's like an offensive award. Mavs right now are the 5 seed. That would put them up against the Clippers in the first round. I don't know about y'all, but the Mavs are, they're very interesting moving forward. Like into the playoffs, they are going to be one of those teams that you cannot miss a game when they're in the playoffs, because you never know what Luka's going to do. Luka is crazy in the playoffs. They are kind of like that wild card team, because they're not the strongest of teams, like roster wise, they're not the strongest, but you got Luka, you got Kyrie, you know, they could go on a deep ass run. They really could, or they could just lose in the first round, or maybe they fall into the play-in and lose out of the play-in, although that's probably not going to happen. The Mavs are going to be insane to watch in the playoffs. To kind of conclude the entire video, I'm down to 2 people, Jokic and Luka in the MVP race. I'm sorry, Shay, he's just not going to win it for me because I just think Luka's the better player. I know the Thunder have 7 more wins. If you care about that, fine. But I don't know. I'm on the Luka bandwagon right now. It's between Luka and Jokic. If you want to go Jokic, I wouldn't get mad at it. But I'm leaning Luka right now, bro. I'm leaning Luka. I think he's the best player in the NBA. And honestly, his team's just a little worse than, you know, the Nuggets with Jokic. So I think it comes down to that. I'm going Luka for MVP. Y'all let me know who you got in the comments below. Sub up, drop a like. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.